And joining me now with more analysis of the report is Morris Davis. He's the former chief prosecutor for terrorism trials at Guantanamo Bay, and he's currently a professor at American University here in Washington. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Love to get your reaction. No major surprises in this report. We've been hearing about these techniques for years now, but why was this report so important, and where does the United States go from here?
Yeah, you're right. I don't think there's any bombshells in the report. I think what may be a bit breathtaking to the public, though, is the extent and the pervasiveness of the program. I think it's important because we claim to be a shining city on a hill, a leader for the world to follow. And when President Ronald Reagan presented the Convention Against Torture to the Senate for approval, and this was back in the days when things happened here on a nonpartisan basis, it was overwhelmingly approved. He said torture is an abhorrent process that the U.S. is leading the effort to stamp out around the world. So I think he would be shocked if he was alive today to see what his country has done in that respect. So this report acknowledges what we did over the past decade. It's an important historical record, but it's a starting point, not a finishing point. The question now is, where do we go from here?
Well, some would say, as we mentioned earlier, that this happened during a time when attacks on the U.S. were imminent, in people's minds at least. Right. Do you think the release of this report will give terrorists out there more ammunition, so to speak, or at least have a benchmark of what the United States intelligence threshold is for people in custody?
I don't think it will. Again, I think most of what was detailed in the report, the public has been out in the public domain for quite some time. I think it confirms what a lot suspected, but I don't think there's anything new here that would be helpful to terrorists. What I hope it will do, though, is spark a discussion about, President Obama had said a little over a year ago when he gave a speech on national security that America's at a crossroads, and we've got to decide which way we want to go. And I'm hoping this report will spark a discussion that will put us back on the high road and not the low road that we took when it came to torture.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry asked for this report release to be delayed, given what's happening with ISIL around the world. What do you make of the timing of it, if at all, and the fact that no CIA operatives were interviewed for this?
Well, as far as timing, we'll have a new Congress coming in January, and it'll be Republican-controlled rather than Democratic-controlled. And as you saw with the report, it's largely along party lines, so it's kind of like now or never with getting that report out there. And I think it is important. I think Senator Feinstein was exactly right in her comments that it's important that we have a public accounting of what took place. I know Senator Kerry asked to delay the report. I know Mike Rogers, head of the House Intelligence Committee, his hair was on fire and bad things were going to happen, but I don't think there's anything in this report that the public didn't know already, whether it's public here in America or in the Middle East. I mean, we just had the former Navy SEAL that shot Osama bin Laden in the face has been on all the major networks talking about the night of the raid, and it didn't spark a global uprising. So I don't think what we did to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed a decade ago is going to foment anger either.
You mentioned a few moments ago that the United States views itself as a shining example to other countries. Do you think that the international community can learn from this as well? Because certainly there are some people out there saying, well, a lot of other countries out there probably do much worse in its intelligence gathering tactics to people they have in custody. Could this lead to a change, perhaps?
Well, I hope it will. I mean, it should lead to a change that, we led the effort to create this global convention against torture that says there's no justification whatsoever for torture. And then 9/11 came along, and suddenly we went from being the home of the brave to being the scared. And we did some things, I think, with the benefit of hindsight, we should regret and learn from. I think an important lesson here is to keep in mind is, this report, the president has again said that he wants to look forward and not back, which is fine. He can do that here domestically, but torture is a war crime where there's universal jurisdiction. So he can forgive and forget here at home, but for the individuals that were involved, whether it's, the President Bush or Dick Cheney or the people that actually conducted the enhanced interrogation techniques, my legal advice to them would be vacation domestically. Because if they leave the U.S., the president doesn't have the authority to excuse them in other places. And this is a war crime that has a universal jurisdiction.
All right. Lieutenant Colonel Morris Davis, as always, we appreciate your time and perspective.